Good evening, Lighthouse friends. I'm trying something a little different today. I got to be honest, when I make these videos, I'm super nervous. This whole idea of recording myself and having it on video and then getting it on my computer and editing it, I have made that much more of a big deal in my mind than it should be. And so today what I decided was after my run, I just came back and decided that I'm just gonna record it and not worry about the lighting, not worry about the editing of the video, and so it's just gonna be like I'm live, but I'm gonna record it and then let you listen. So I appreciate you taking time to listen to the lessons every week, and I hope they're encouraging to you, and I hope they're helpful to you. Tonight, I want to start with just a simple lesson about a guy that I've actually been reading about for a long time and recently been thinking a lot about, and we'll probably be talking about this guy for multiple weeks. But it's about a guy named Joseph, and the story is found in the Old Testament in the book of Genesis, chapter 37. And the truth is, when you read the story, it reads very much like something that you might watch on Netflix today. It's about a guy, Joseph. He was a teenager, 17 when this part of the story happened, and his dad had been married multiple times, had multiple wives, had children with each of those wives, and there was a lot of disagreement, a lot of fighting and jealousy between the children of the different wives, and just the kind of story that would probably make a good TV special. And so I believe there's a lot we can learn from this, and so we're going to look at that real quick. I'm going to grab my Bible here on my iPad, and I'm going to read just a few verses from Genesis chapter 37. It says, Joseph was a young man of 17, and he was tending his flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he'd been born to him in his old age, and he'd made an ornate robe for him. Ornate just means that it was very colorful, very expensive looking, and probably expensive costing robe. Verse 4, it says, when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him, and they could not speak a kind word to him. Wow, holy moly. How many of you, I wonder, have ever had a little bit of jealousy towards your brother or your sister, or maybe a friend? If you don't have any siblings. As we can see here in the Old Testament, this was written more than 2,000 years ago. Those things aren't new. So we've got this boy, he's 17, he's got brothers from multiple mothers, and his dad, he's the youngest, and his dad treats him better than all the other brothers, and they are jealous of that. So we read in verse 5, it says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream that I had. Now you got to ask yourself, Joseph, he was a smart kid, he was 17. There's a part of this where you have to wonder, was he bringing this on himself? Was he asking for trouble here? When you see what he did here, you know, there's times when you just got to keep some things to yourself. He says, hey brothers, listen to this dream that I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly mine stood up and yours gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to rule over us? What are you talking about? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he said. Woo! We can see that things are building. Unfortunately, Joseph didn't stop there. In verse 9 it says, then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream that you had? Do you really think that your brother, your mother, and I and your brothers will actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now, there's a lot we could talk about there, but the one thing I want you to pay attention to and think about is the way that his brothers were acting. Because I suspect that many of you have felt very much the same way. I know many of you come from families where you got siblings, and very often siblings that are either from another household, maybe not even blood siblings. Whatever the relationship, they're your siblings, and they live with you, or you see them sometimes, and you've probably felt this way. And so I want you to just pay attention to the rest of the story and see what happens. It continues on down in verse 17. We'll pick up, and basically the dad had sent Joseph out to find the older brothers. They had been out working, and they were shepherds, and it says that they were grazing their flocks. So they had taken their sheep out and were miles away tending to the sheep, and he was sent to go find them and check on them. And it says, so Joseph went after his brothers, and he found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. So now we've gone from them being jealous to them being full of hatred towards him, and the hatred has now turned into a desire for murder. Holy moly. You know, I'm positive that none of them imagined when Joseph was born, when he was a little baby, none of them were thinking, "Ooh, I can't stand this little baby brother. We should kill him." There was a process that happened by them allowing this jealousy and eventual hatred to simmer and stew and just be in their hearts that ultimately took over them. It says in verse 19, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him now and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." When Reuben, that was one of the brothers, heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and to take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, that ornate robe that he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty and there was no water in it. Now, a cistern, I went and looked that up today, and that was an old school well that they used, and it was actually carved out of rock, and a cistern was commonly 15 to 20 feet deep. So, and the way it was made, it was kind of like a bowl in the bottom, and then it got skinny at the top. And so they were often used as dungeons if they were empty. And so there was no way for Joseph to get out of this. And it says there was no water in it, so that there was no soft landing. They threw him in this thing, and he fell 15 to 20 feet, hit the ground. So you know he's hurting, might have broken something, and they basically were leaving him there to die. And I think that's where we're going to stop tonight. We're going to keep talking about Joseph, but I want to just talk a little bit before we're done about this jealousy thing that we read about in his brothers. And the thing that I would say to you is be careful about what you let simmer in your heart. The process of growing up and learning about yourself includes paying attention to what happens in your heart. Maybe you see somebody, you hear about something, and you realize, oh, I don't want to be around them, or I'm jealous of them, or when when I think about that person, I get just angry. My face gets hot. Or when I'm talking about when that other person's name comes up, I don't even like who I am, because I can tell I want to get revenge on them. All kinds of things can happen in relationships like that. And so I want to challenge you, encourage you to be honest with yourself about those kinds of feelings. If you're angry, jealous, revengeful, whatever it is, I've been there. And I know that those things are hard, but I also know you can work through them. I had a really difficult time. Some of you have heard me talk about it, where I got fired from a job that I loved, and I thought I was fired very unfairly. And I got to be honest, thankfully, I did what I'd been taught, what I knew was supposed to work, even though on day one it wasn't working. Because on day one, I was super angry. I wanted to call everybody I could think of and fight for my rights. And yet I went out and I took my prayer walk, and I think probably for the first week, every time I was praying, I was screaming and telling God about how unfair it is. But I did that every day. You know, I had challenged you to learn Philippians chapter 4, the verses that say, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, through prayer and supplication, present your requests to God, submit your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." So I did that. Every day I did that. Every day I would get up and I would say, "God, I am still angry. Lord, I don't know what to do with this." And you know what happened? I did that for about 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, I realized one day, I'm no longer angry. Something happened. All of a sudden, and I say it like it happened all of a sudden, but I think it happened gradually. But all of a sudden, I realized that it happened, very much like, you know, you can stare at your fingernails and you can't see them grow. And you even kind of glance at your hand every day and don't really notice that your fingernails are growing until you go like, "Whoa, I need to cut my fingernails." Well, that's the way it was with me in this particular situation. I kept saying, "Lord, I'm still angry, and I don't know what to do with this." And the Lord just kept talking to me, and He was doing things in my heart until, after about 3 weeks, I realized that I was no longer angry. In fact, I know this might sound crazy. I was actually thankful that I had been fired. Something had happened in my heart that I realized that the Lord was using it for my good, to develop me. I had prayed many months before that the Lord would turn me into a special forces kind of person. I'd read a book about some of you might have heard of it. It's called Lone Survivor, and it's about this special forces guy that was involved in an incredible enemy sneak attack, and he was behind enemy lines, and ultimately was rescued. And that story was super inspiring to me, and I had said, "Lord, I want to be that kind of person for you, the kind of guy that if there's a mission that you need to send somebody on, you send me." And the Lord, in the midst of me telling Him that I was angry about getting fired, reminded me of that and said, "Hey, if you're serious, then you got to be willing to go through some tough emotional things, some tough things in your heart, to sort through what really matters, what doesn't, to break your pride, to soften your will. All kinds of things need to happen in your heart if you want to be who you say you want to be." And I ended up going back to my mentor, my pastor. He was the one that fired me. And at the end of that 3rd week, and I, with tears, told him, "Thank you for firing me." And I've got to be honest, that was one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. Now, on the day that it happened, it definitely didn't feel like that. And so if you're struggling with some of the same kind of things, maybe you're super jealous of one of your brothers or sisters, or maybe you're angry. I promise you, if you do what Philippians says, if you get honest, if you just say it to the Lord, I'm angry, over and over again, and don't let those things sit and simmer and take root in your heart, He will do amazing things with them. He'll turn them into to tools and treasures in you that could not have developed in any other way. And so I hope that's encouraging to you to know that if you are having some of those feelings, there is hope. And I hope you're excited about reading the rest of this story. You're welcome to read ahead. It starts in Genesis 37, and I think it probably goes to Genesis 50-something. But we're going to continue talking about Joseph and his story, because it definitely doesn't end there at the bottom of the cistern. So thank you for listening to the lesson tonight. If you're doing verses, I want to apologize. I've not been good this past week about getting back with people, and I've just been busy, and so that's my fault. I appreciate those of you that are learning the verses and telling me that you're ready. This week's verses, if you're just learning the short version, it's Hebrews 12:1, and if you're learning the longer versions, it's Hebrews 12:1 through 3. A great set of verses to learn that definitely apply to this story. And finally, we're going to do a special project. You know how much I love music, and we do a lot of music at Lighthouse. I don't know if any of you have seen these videos that people make where they take a bunch of people singing on their cell phones and they combine them together, but I've actually been thinking about doing that for a while, and did a test video with some people, and now I'm ready to invite you to do one with me. And so we're going to do that song, Truth Be Told, by Matthew West. I know many of you that come to Lighthouse love that song. And so if you'd like to participate, you'll need to find the video for that song, Truth Be Told by Matthew West. In fact, I'm going to leave a link to that in the description of this lesson video. Then you'll need, ideally, 2 devices. So you'll need like your phone and somebody else's phone, or your phone and a computer, because the best way to do this is to not try to record yourself singing on your phone while you're listening to the song on your phone. There are ways to do that, but it's definitely not the easiest way to make these videos. And so you need to have somebody else's phone and some earbuds or headphones, and then try to get it into a room by yourself, someplace that's quiet. Get the viewing phone and get the video ready for Truth Be Told, and get your earbuds in, and then get your phone ready to record a video of yourself. Now, don't leave it across the room. We don't need to see you head to toe. We definitely want to see you in the video, but I really want to make sure the phone is close enough to you that we get a good recording of your voice. Now, you might be thinking, there's no way. I don't want anybody seeing me on video. I definitely don't want anybody hearing me on video on a song. I just would say, trust me. We're gonna make it look good, and it's gonna sound good. And so, get into a room by yourself. Get the video ready on one phone that you've got earbuds for. Get the video recording ready on your phone, and then if you need to, if you don't know the song, make sure you've got the lyrics in front of you. Either print them out or write them out, or practice the song a bunch so you know the lyrics. And then record yourself a video of you singing the song while it's playing in the earbuds. And then send me that video. If you've got an iPhone, that's ideal, because then I'll get that over iMessage. It'll be good, high quality. If you've got an Android or some other kind of phone, you can try sending it to me. But a better option might be uploading it to your Google account, your Google Drive, and then sharing it with me with my school account. So if you text me, once you've got your video ready, we can work out the details of how I get that. So it'll be really cool, and I'd love to have as many of you as possible participate in that. Text me if you have any questions about that. My number is 765-271-6687. Thank you for listening. Talk to you later.